In 1890, deep in the untamed wilderness of southern Brazil, a dying man buried a fortune in gold so vast it could buy an entire city. But before anyone could find it, he made sure no living soul would ever reveal its location. He killed the only witness, buried him alive with the treasure, and took the secret to his grave. To this day, people vanish searching for it. Bodies are found near a cursed lagoon, and locals swear that on foggy nights you can hear screaming coming from beneath the earth. This is the legend of Chico Felipe, the soldier who became richer than kings, and the blood-soaked fortune that still lies waiting in the darkness of São José do Ouro. What I'm about to tell you isn't just folklore. This is documented history twisted into nightmare. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some treasures should never be found. Before we dive into the absolute insanity of what happened here, you need to understand something crucial. This isn't your typical pirate treasure story. This is about a man who survived one of the bloodiest wars in South American history, who walked away from the carnage of the Paraguayan War with nothing but trauma and ambition, and who spent the rest of his life building an empire in complete isolation. Then, when death came knocking, he made sure his fortune would be guarded by something far more terrifying than any lock or vault. He made sure it would be protected by a curse, by murder, and by the restless spirit of an innocent man buried alive. I'm going to walk you through 3 interconnected legends from São José do Ouro that all point to the same horrifying truth. By the time we're done, you'll see why this small Brazilian municipality has one of the darkest origin stories in South America, and why the treasure hunters who ignore the warnings never come back the same. Stay with me, because what starts as a war story becomes a tale of betrayal, greed, and supernatural revenge that continues to this day. Let's start with the man himself. Chico Felipe wasn't born into wealth. He was a common soldier, thrown into the meat grinder of the Paraguayan War, one of the most brutal conflicts in Latin American history. Between 1864 and 1870, this war killed over 400,000 people. Soldiers died from bullets, disease, starvation, and sheer exhaustion. Chico Felipe saw it all. He watched his brothers-in-arms torn apart by artillery, drowned in rivers, left to rot in the jungle. And somewhere in that blood-soaked hell, something inside him broke. He stopped caring about honor, about duty, about his country. He only cared about one thing, never being poor and powerless again. So he did what desperate men do in desperate times. He deserted. But Chico didn't just walk away empty-handed. According to local historians, he did something that would haunt him forever. He looted, not from the enemy but from his own fallen comrades. While other soldiers were dying, Chico Felipe was stripping gold teeth, stealing family heirlooms, pocketing military pay that would never reach widows and orphans. He became a ghost on the battlefield, appearing after skirmishes to pick over corpses like a vulture. And when he finally fled the war, he carried with him a fortune stained with the blood of his countrymen. With his stolen wealth, Chico Felipe vanished into the wilderness of Rio Grande do Sul. In the 1880s, this region was essentially uncharted territory. Beyond the scattered indigenous Coroado tribes, almost no one lived there. It was perfect for a man who wanted to disappear. Chico found a vast tract of land owned by a settler named José Alves, and he bought it all. Just like that, a deserter with blood money became a landowner, a pioneer, a respectable citizen. But here's where the story gets interesting, and where the legend starts to merge with documented history. Chico Felipe didn't just hide away on his land, he thrived. He befriended the local Coroado chief and convinced the indigenous people to help him build roads, connecting his territory to Lagoa Vermelha and São Sebastião do Caí. These weren't just trails, these were major trade routes. Every merchant, every traveler who passed through had to cross Chico's land, and Chico made sure they paid for the privilege. Tolls, fees, taxes. He invented reasons to extract money from everyone who came through. Within a decade, the deserter had become one of the wealthiest men in southern Brazil. But wealth, especially stolen wealth, comes with a price. Chico Felipe married one of his slaves, a woman named Maria Joana. Think about that for a moment. A man who had enslaved people, who had built his fortune on theft and death, took one of his own captives as a wife. Maria Joana was the daughter of Bernardina, another enslaved woman on Chico's property. The marriage was controversial, even by the standards of the time, but Chico didn't care about scandal. Some say he actually loved Maria Joana. Others say he married her to ensure complete loyalty, to have someone by his side who legally owned nothing and could claim nothing. Either way, Maria Joana became the lady of a dark house built on darker money, and she would be one of the last people to see Chico Felipe alive. As the years passed, Chico's health deteriorated. The jungle diseases, the old war wounds, the stress of guarding his secrets, it all caught up with him. By the early 1890s, he knew he was dying, and that's when he made a decision that would birth one of Brazil's most enduring legends. On his deathbed, Chico Felipe did something unexpected. He donated most of his visible wealth, his land, his buildings, his livestock, to Maria Joana's family, specifically to his mother-in-law Bernardina and her relatives. It was an act that seemed generous, even redemptive. The enslaved family would inherit an empire. But here's the thing. Most of Chico's fortune wasn't in land or livestock. It was in gold. The plundered gold from the war. The accumulated gold from decades of extortion. A treasure so massive it couldn't be explained away as legitimate business profits. That gold could raise questions, bring authorities, attract the wrong kind of attention. So Chico decided to hide it. But he didn't trust anyone with the location. Not Maria Joana, not Bernardina, not even his closest associates. Instead, he called upon a single enslaved man, someone strong enough to dig, loyal enough to follow orders, and ultimately disposable enough to silence forever. Late one night, according to the legend, Chico Felipe and this unnamed slave ventured into the wilderness surrounding São José do Ouro. They carried shovels, lanterns, and several heavy chests filled with gold coins, bars, jewelry, everything Chico had accumulated over his blood-soaked lifetime. They walked for hours, deep into the forest, until they reached a specific location, a place Chico had scouted long before. Some say it was near a lagoon, a body of water that would later be called Lagoa do Ouro, the Golden Lagoon. Others say it was in a cave system beneath the forest floor. The exact location remains unknown, and that's precisely how Chico wanted it. They dug deep, deeper than any grave, deep enough that flooding wouldn't expose it, deep enough that casual wanderers would never stumble upon it. They lowered the treasure into the earth, chest after chest of gold gleaming in the lamplight. And then, when the last chest was in place, Chico Felipe did the unthinkable. He killed the slave, not quickly, not mercifully. According to the darkest versions of the tale, Chico forced the man into the pit with the gold, then buried him alive. The slave's screams were swallowed by the earth as dirt piled onto his chest, his face filling his mouth and lungs. Chico Felipe stood above, shovel in hand, sweating and trembling, listening to the muffled cries fade into silence. And then there was nothing but the sound of nocturnal insects and Chico's own ragged breathing. The treasure was hidden, the secret was safe, and a curse was born. Because you don't murder an innocent man, you don't bury him alive with stolen gold, without creating something dark, something that lingers. Chico Felipe returned home alone, collapsed into bed, and within days he was dead. Maria Joana and Bernardina inherited the estate, but they never found the gold. Chico took the secret with him to whatever judgment awaited his soul. The legend could have ended there, a tragic tale of greed and murder lost to time. But it didn't, because almost immediately, strange things started happening around São José do Ouro, particularly near Lagoa do Ouro. Workers building roads near the lagoon reported hearing screaming underground, desperate cries for help that seemed to come from beneath their feet. At first, they assumed it was wind through cave systems, natural acoustics playing tricks. But the screaming always happened at night, and it always sounded human, agonized, pleading. Animals refused to graze near certain areas. Horses would bolt, cattle would bellow in terror, dogs would whimper and refuse to move forward. Seasoned trackers, men who had spent their entire lives in the wilderness, suddenly found themselves disoriented near the lagoon, walking in circles, unable to find paths they had traveled 100 times before. And then people started vanishing. In the early 1900s, as the region began to attract settlers, treasure hunters inevitably arrived. The story of Chico Felipe's gold had spread, whispered in taverns and trading posts across Rio Grande do Sul. Men came with maps, divining rods, dreams of instant wealth. Most found nothing and left disappointed, but some never left at all. The first recorded disappearance was in 1908, 16 years after Chico Felipe's death. A prospector named Augusto Reis told his family he was going to search near Lagoa do Ouro. He was experienced, well-supplied, and confident. He never returned. Search parties found his camp abandoned, his supplies untouched, his tools laid out as if he'd stepped away for just a moment and simply never came back. There were no tracks, no signs of struggle, no body. It was as if the earth had swallowed him whole. Over the next few decades, at least 7 more people vanished under similar circumstances, always near the lagoon, always treasure hunters, always without a trace. By the 1920s, locals had stopped searching for the gold. The treasure, they said, was cursed. It belonged to the dead man buried with it, and he would drag anyone who disturbed him down into the darkness. But the legend took an even darker turn in 1934. A farmer named Heitor Cardoso was plowing a field about 2 kilometers from Lagoa do Ouro when his plow blade struck something metal. Excited, thinking he might have found farming equipment or perhaps something valuable, Heitor began digging. What he unearthed made him drop his shovel and run screaming back to town. It was a human skull, but not just any skull. The jaw was dislocated, locked open in what must have been a scream, and inside the mouth, packed into the teeth and throat, was dirt. This person had been buried alive, had died with their mouth full of earth, gasping and choking as they were swallowed by the ground. But here's the truly terrifying part. Clutched in the skeletal hand was a single gold coin, dated 1889, exactly the period when Chico Felipe would have buried his treasure. Heitor reburied the remains immediately and refused to ever speak about what else he might have seen in that hole. But he told his priest one thing before taking the secret to his own grave. There were chains on the skeleton and more gold gleaming just beneath it. News of Heitor's discovery reignited the treasure hunt, but with a new horrifying context. People now knew the legend was real. There was gold, there was a murdered guardian, and there was a curse. Paranormal investigators started showing up in the 1950s armed with Ouija boards and electromagnetic detectors. They all reported the same things. Massive spiritual disturbance near the lagoon, angry masculine energy, and an overwhelming sense of being watched by something that wanted them to leave and never return. One investigator, a man named Dr. Lucio Fernandez from São Paulo, claimed he made contact with the murdered slave's spirit through automatic writing. The entity, he said, called itself João, though he didn't know if that was his real name or a name adopted in death. João's message was simple and chilling. The gold is mine now, paid for with my life, and anyone who takes it will pay the same price. Dr. Fernandez left São José do Ouro the next morning and reportedly never worked another paranormal case again. The modern era hasn't diminished the legend, it's amplified it. With metal detectors, ground-penetrating radar, and GPS technology, treasure hunters have become more sophisticated. But the results remain the same. In 2003, a group of amateur archaeologists got permission to survey the area around Lagoa do Ouro. They spent 3 weeks mapping, scanning, and digging test pits. Their equipment repeatedly malfunctioned. Batteries died instantly. Compass needles spun wildly. And on their final night, their camp was destroyed, tents shredded, equipment smashed, as if something had torn through in a rage. They found footprints in the mud, human footprints, but they were too deep, pressed into the earth with impossible weight, as if made by someone, or something, far heavier than any living person. The archaeologists abandoned the project and never returned. In 2011, a reality TV show about treasure hunting tried to film an episode at Lagoa do Ouro. The production was shut down after just 2 days. The crew refused to continue, citing extreme psychological distress, equipment failure, and what the producer described as overwhelming evil presence that made people physically ill. So here's where we are today. São José do Ouro is a peaceful municipality in Rio Grande do Sul, settled officially in 1912, 20 years after Chico Felipe's death. The town was built on the dreams of Italian immigrants, hard-working families who knew nothing of the dark legend beneath their feet. They built a chapel dedicated to Saint Joseph, the town's patron, on November 1st, 1912, a holy place meant to bring blessing to the land. But underneath the prayers and the progress, the old story persists. Lagoa do Ouro remains. It's a beautiful place during the day, serene water surrounded by green forest. But locals won't go there after dark. They won't let their children play near it. And when tourists ask about the treasure, they change the subject or give vague warnings about respecting the past. Because they know something that treasure hunters learn too late. Some fortunes are never meant to be found. Some debts are paid in blood and souls, and some guardians never stop watching. The legend of Chico Felipe's buried fortune is more than just a story about hidden gold. It's about the price of greed, the weight of violence, and the way evil actions echo through generations. Chico Felipe thought he could escape his crimes by hiding his treasure and silencing the witness. Instead, he created a legacy of disappearances, madness, and death that has lasted over 130 years. The treasure is still there, somewhere in the earth around São José do Ouro, guarded by the vengeful spirit of a man whose name was forgotten but whose rage was immortalized. And as long as people keep searching, the body count will keep rising. If you ever find yourself in Rio Grande do Sul, if you ever stand near Lagoa do Ouro and feel the urge to start digging, remember this: gold is just metal, and no amount of wealth is worth joining Joana in the darkness beneath the earth, screaming forever as the dirt fills your lungs. That treasure belongs to the dead now. Let them keep it. Share this video if you believe some secrets should stay buried. And whatever you do, don't go looking for gold in places where the ground itself can swallow you whole.